the Ask Sessions, and we are planning a release with Dr. Isobel Anderson. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Phil.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. Have you been planning any releases today? Have you been putting together your charts and your graphs and Excel sheets and all that?
No, but I did actually put together a mini course on releasing last month, so it's quite fresh in my head.
So let's jump into it. The first question that we've been sent in for you is, how long do you need to properly release and promote an album?
Very good question. I would say a minimum of 6 months before your album drops, minimum. And that will give you time to, on the one hand, contact press, and including, actual newspapers and, dare I say it, The Guardian, Rolling Stone. No matter how ambitious you are, that will give you some time to do that, and also to line up, PR or radio plugging if you're going that big with your budget. Even if you're releasing very DIY and very stripped back, 6 months will mean that you do not, hopefully, lose your head, and you will have time to release singles beforehand. I would also advise that people, after that 6 months, are releasing other things too. So I would say realistically for an album, you're looking at like a year, but that's lead up and kind of promotion afterwards too.
But yeah, that's not even the writing and recording of it. That's like a year of just getting everything right. The thing is, like, with a lot of artists, when they have the recording of the album done and they're happy with the mixes, the instinct is to get it out as fast as possible.
Yeah. And I completely relate to that, because that's what I did for a long time. And I mean, actually, really, my first 3 releases, I kind of, my third one, not so much, but I think what you learn as you go on, and if there's something I could kind of tell someone starting out first time round, is it's much better, as much care as you would take in making the recordings really good, you should take as much care in putting them out and sharing them with people, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to help your music get heard. And I know that everyone watching this is going to want that as much as they're going to want the recordings to sound amazing.
But you've spent all this time, like, learning your instrument, learning your trade, going and playing it live, and then you finished it and the album's done, and now you have to do a whole new job that you haven't been trained for. It's quite difficult, right?
Really difficult, and in lots of ways not very fair. I'm not going to lie, I think there's massive issues with the way that the music industry is working or not working. There were issues before the internet, but it isn't fair. Like, you have to be so many different people. But I think the reality is that it's not just music where this is the case. Most careers where you are sharing anything with the world these days requires you to be a marketer, requires you to have a head for budgets, requires you to even be a brand. There's just so many parts of it that you have to juggle. But the good news is you can learn a lot of that stuff as you go along. So you don't have to have it all figured out now, and you learn it through doing it. There's no teacher like experience. And that's how I've learned a lot of the stuff I've learned.
Let's get a little bit more into the nitty gritty. How do you find a digital distributor? And like, are some better than others, and are some more suited to certain types of music?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, how I found a digital distributor was that I just did a search on Google, and I didn't go with, I think the first company that came up was CD Baby. This is when I was releasing over 10 years ago, and I didn't like the logo, so I didn't go with CD Baby. So I went with a company called Root Note, which are were at least a tiny company in Cornwall. I don't know how they came up on the search engine. They must have somebody who's very good at SEO in their company. But I signed up with them, and it's very easy to find a digital distributor. There's loads of them now, and it's even free to put your music out. They'll just take a little percentage. But what happened for me was I think that Root Note gave me more care and attention because they're a smaller company. Now, does that mean that, the landscape is changing all the time? So does that mean that if you release with something like CD Baby or TuneCore, you're going to have problems? Not necessarily. But what I would definitely say is, again, just accept that you're not going to get it perfect first time round, and you may change your distributor the second time round that you release, and that's okay. But the most important thing is that you do a little bit of research, but that you don't let trying to make these decisions hold you back from just moving forward.
Would you spend money, because obviously money is like something that's always like quite thin in the ground when you're doing DIY. I mean, if you had 100 grand, you'd probably spend 100 grand. If you had 100 pounds, you'd spend 100 pounds. Should you spend money on getting physical products, or is it best just sticking digitally at the start?
I think if you know that you can shift those physical products, then yes, by all means do it. And I think if you know that even if you don't have a really engaged fan base, if you know that you can do a lot of live gigs, which I know is, as we're recording this, that's very much up in question. But if you can do a lot of live gigs, then yes, make physical products. I also think there's an argument for making physical products because if you have the budget, because as an artist, it can be incredibly affirming and incredibly creative to put that together. And that's valid as well. If you're going to do that, though, I would be kind of canny about it and think, right, what would be the nicest thing for me to make then? Maybe a vinyl. I'll get 50 copies of a vinyl made, but I'll make it really nice. It might cost me £1,000, which would be the same as getting, you know, I don't know, like 800 CDs made, for example. But those vinyl, I'm going to really cherish them and I'm going to be really proud of them. And for me as an artist, that really represents my vision, my creative vision. So you have to make a lot of those decisions on a personal level, but some of it's practical, some of it's artistic.
When it comes to planning a release, there's a million different things that you have to like tick off, whether it's content and social media, whether it's getting the music right first off. Like, I mean, you can kind of like make a list as long as your arm of things that you need to do, and that goes back to the planning and the amount of time and effort that you have to put aside before your little baby gets to see the light of day. One of the things that I get asked about so much in my job, working in radio and the music industry, is that like people ask, oh, well, what makes a good press release? Like what should be included in it? And I don't know if you've got a different answer than me. Like what mine is like, just like a very, very, very short paragraph and a very good picture and a link to something that just streams and it's not a download. Do you have anything different to that?
No, I mean, I think that's very good advice. I think also be assertive. Don't own the things that you have achieved and the things that you've done. And even if you're just starting out, own the things that you stand for as an artist. Don't put lots of I thinks and maybes and almost come across like you're apologizing for sending somebody your music. It's really important that when someone's reading your press release, they know that you fully are behind what you're sending them.
We're very good at Northern Ireland about apologizing for things without actually having done anything wrong, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah, totally. So own it.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your answers. The first doctor I've interviewed today, anyway. And yes, big up, much love.
Oh, thank you, Phil. My pleasure.